Screenagers, welcome back to another episode of the Canon, your favorite movie podcast. As always, the one and only movie podcast providing you with a watch list of the most essential movies ever made. My name is Raf, and we have yet another essential movie lined up for y'all today. We're going to be talking Pandora's Box. Very excited for this one. Joining me to talk about it, one of our faves, returning guest, returning co-host. You know him, you love him, Mr. Bryan Loomis. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Raf. Excited to talk about some German silent film.
Hell yeah. We
Yeah.
don't get to talk about enough German silent film, the two of us.
We talk about all genres, all eras, but the German silent films, not so much. Have we ever talked German silent film? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
First time.
I think we have on the Canon. There are actually a good amount of German silent films in the Canon,
There's a
which is good.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
Germany was, as I'm sure we'll get into, sort of a leader in the
Mhm.
20s, and then something weird happened in the 30s and 40s with their films. So yeah, wild times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
it
well,
took them until like the 70s to become internationally prominent again, which is sort of
we
wild.
will definitely talk about some of the historical context that this movie exists within because it is very interesting examining all of that stuff and the history of German silent film and where it starts and where it ends and sort of then what comes after that and informs a lot of if not like most of film history going forward, which is pretty wild if we want to like zoom all the way out. But before we get into this movie proper, or maybe in order to get into this movie proper, there are a few other things that we need to talk about beforehand. The first one being we were chatting offline about uh our viewing experience or experiences of this movie, and I found yours to be very funny. So I want you to share with folks how it is that you rewatched this movie for this particular recording.
Well, I'm gonna start it off in even more of a fun way than I had texted you about, and you'll uh, and then we can unpack exactly what it means. But I like to phrase things in ways that like people would have no idea what I'm talking about, but then explain it. So I'll start off by I was paid $350 an hour to watch this film. That's the truth.
Okay.
It's actually it's mostly a truth. My company billed $350 an hour for my time while I was watching this film. So it did not go directly in my pocket, but it was like my time. I put it in an Excel sheet today, and we billed somebody $350 an hour for my time as I was watching this film.
We definitely have to get more into that. I you know what? I'm not going to share it. I'm going to keep my professional life and this life totally separate, but I will fully allow you to further explain what it
Sure.
is that you mean by you, you got paid 350 an hour to watch this movie.
Okay, well, what I had texted you is that I watched this on a plane, which is also true. So I was flying to and back from North Carolina and watched this on the flight. So I work for a consulting firm, and we go out to we do some travel. We bill clients for the travel, and so it's common practice in our industry to bill for flight time in
Mhm.
addition to like when you're actually there, and we do like permitting hearings for energy projects and stuff. So on my way to and back from, I was watching this movie and I billed that time to a client because we bill for travel time. And so I got paid to watch this movie. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So, did you watch this in 2 separate viewings, in
Yeah,
2
the
viewings,
the
2
flights were
sittings?
pretty short, and I didn't get all the way through it on the way there, so I finished it up, on the way back. I usually feel less bad about that if I've seen the movie before. I'd seen this
Mhm.
before and had maybe a more focus, so I'm just refreshing on it, so, yeah, that felt fine to me.
When you watch movies on a plane, are you computer, iPad? Are you a phone guy?
I am. Yeah, I'll watch it on my phone because that's the only you can watch it uninterrupted that way and don't have to like put away the large devices and stuff. So, yeah, I had it
Mm,
downloaded to my phone, Bluetooth headphones, just watching it that way. Yeah.
as GW Pabst, intended.
Intended. Yep.
Did you
Exactly.
watch it as a series of TikToks in vertical format?
That I did not. No. I
I'm sur I'm surprised that you're a phone guy,
Yeah,
that you
I
watch
can
on your
do
phone.
it. I'll watch movies any way I can, basically. And for certain times or certain films, I try to experience them in like a better viewing experience. I find it doesn't bother me having a like less than ideal viewing experience, and I can still usually appreciate the film or, you know, discover something that I really like, even if it's not like the best viewing experience. It doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the film. But then sometimes you will have like more special experiences with a film
Mhm,
in certain settings. So, I run a film screening series with a buddy, and so we're big on, showing in non-traditional spaces. I feel like sometimes that brings out something interesting in
mhm,
films, and really nice to see it, older stuff too, with a group on a big screen in a neat place. So I really enjoy that too, but I'll watch anyway, I can, because you can watch more stuff if you do that. I like
ye
watching a lot of stuff.
you're, you're more of a volume shooter than, necessarily picking your spots, and because there are those who are, dare I say, slightly obnoxious about how it is that they're going to view something. um, I think you agree that to a certain extent, or whenever possible, you should watch it on a big screen in a theater in a dark room with hopefully a group of other people. But you're not like a I need to watch this on the biggest screen possible in order
No,
to fully get the most out of it.
I enjoy that experience, but I don't think it's the only experience that you can have with a film. And I think people enjoy different types of experiences, and we should let basically every person do what they want in terms. Like, we should be encouraging people to watch stuff and not being too exclusive about like how they watch stuff. Is
Yeah.
mostly my perspective on it.
So like the guy who's like, why would I watch? And by the guy that guy, I mean kind of mean me. Why would
Hmm.
I watch this on my phone or on my iPad or even on my computer via a streaming service when I can go out and get the best restoration of a Blu-ray, the best transfer of this movie possible to watch on my expensive Blu-ray player, on my nice TV, and that's the only way that I can appreciate this movie. Like, what do you say to that guy? What do you say to me?
if that is what you enjoy doing most, then I'm all for it. I am against policing how people watch movies. I think everybody should be allowed to enjoy movies in whatever way they see fit.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's that sentiment is really in the spirit of what this show, The Canon, is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be a celebration of movies. And if we can celebrate these films themselves, why can we not also celebrate the idea that people are seeking movies out? They're trying to watch more stuff, they're trying to expose themselves to more things. When possible, they'll do it in the quote unquote right setting or the right place or the right way. But if the only way that you can watch Pandora's Box is on flights to and from North Carolina, then that's how you got to watch it. you know,
Yeah.
my viewing experience for this was not as, I'll say, fun and adventurous as yours. And unfortunately, it was my first viewing experience, but I did watch this in four separate sittings over the course of 2 days,
Mm.
which was not ideal at all. Um,
Yeah.
the first time I sat down to watch it, I thought I had a big break in between meetings. I was like, I have some time on my calendar. I'll sit down. I'll watch this movie. As I'm watching, someone always reaches out. Hey, can we chat at this time? All right. Try to watch it later that night. I just wasn't in the right headspace for it. Tried again today during during a block. Someone else, hey, let me get 5 minutes of your time. All right. Finally finished it. Um, I do think that my viewing experience or my relationship to the movie would have been a little bit better if I was able to just watch it in one sitting,
Mhm.
uninterrupted by, you know, random meetings popping up, but it's still a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's good.
It's good stuff. Um, Sweet. Should we hop in, or do you have anything else on?
On the experience
Yeah.
of watching, it held up well on a plane, you know? I I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I'm I'm picturing the person sitting next to you who, probably isn't familiar with
Oh, yeah.
uh German silent films, thinking to themselves, "What the hell is this guy watching?"
Oh, yeah, yeah. I get a lot of that because, well, for this film screening series that I was talking about, it's in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's called Chroma. We're doing a film festival this fall, an experimental film festival.
Oh, hell
And
yeah.
so we've taken a ton of experimental film submissions. And so I got to get through, thankfully, experimental films are pretty short. Most of our submissions are between like 3 minutes and 15 minutes long. So not a huge time commitment, but I got to get through a lot of them, like hundreds of them.
Mhm.
So I've been watching them on the treadmill, just like publicly at Crunch Fitness, just throwing on the experimental films. I haven't seen these before. I don't know what's going to pop up on my screen. It's
Yeah.
experimental film. It's the Wild West. So, yeah, I think they're going to probably ban me from Crunch Fitness at some point, but we'll see.
Is this Are you running or are you walking on the treadmill?
I'm running on the treadmill like a crazy person. And then every 3 to 15 minutes, I'm grabbing my phone and trying to it's through Film Freeway, which is the most prominent uh, for taking film submissions, like software, but
Mhm.
it's not made for mobile. So it's like a desktop site that I'm having to like zoom in and try to like put a rating and recommendation for the
Yeah.
film while I'm running. So I try to do the longer submissions while I'm on the treadmill because it's real
Ye
annoying to have to fiddle with that in the middle of a run.
I'm
Eh,
picturing you doing, like, really, like, shorter sprints to get through the 3 to 5 minute long experimental films.
yeah, yeah.
You're just you're banging out a quick sprint for a 5-minute movie. You end that, you finish the run, turn the treadmill off, go back to your phone, pull up the next movie, another sprint. Um, and yeah, again, I'm sure there are people in the gym just like, what's going on with this guy over here?
Yeah.
I think it would be hilarious if you did it not like at other places at the gym, like to see you on the squat rack or something, watching
Oh,
experimental films or watching Pandora's Box.
yeah, I haven't quite gotten there. I'll listen to that's my podcast listening time. That's why I throw a Raf on the Canon
Yeah.
podcast. Let's go. Needs the motivation for my squats.
Yeah. If anyone is listening to us either on a run or on the squat rack, on the bench press, you got this.
Yeah.
You're crushing it. We believe in you.
Absolutely.
We love you. Keep keep up
I'd
the good work.
say at any given time for a podcast of your listenership, probably 25% are at the gym,
Mhm.
50% are probably in the car,
Mhm.
and the other 25% are in the shower, which is weird to think about,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. People listen to podcasts in the shower.
No, I've actually someone has brought that up to me where they were like, I was listening to you in the shower, and then I thought it was weird that you were in that space with me, that your voice was in that space with me, and I turned it off, which I totally get. Yeah, I would assume
That's
most
fine.
people are in the car or
Yeah,
slash for my New York friends on the subway.
on the subway. That's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah, or throw it on while you're working, you know.
Yeah. I do most of my listening while working, doing mindless spreadsheets and all that good stuff. Um, yeah, I'm not a big podcast at the gym guy though.
It's tough. You sometimes really need that music to sort of to get going. It depends on what you're doing, I think.
Yeah, I just, listening to like Ezra Klein on the bench press, like that's not gonna help you throw weight.
No, that doesn't get that extra rep. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're, you're ending that set a little early. You're like, ah,
yeah,
that's good
yeah. I'm
enough.
not really feeling kind of down.
uh,
There's no clean way to transition from Ezra Klein on the bench press to Pandora's box. So we're just gonna jump in. Um,
all right.
yeah, great movie. Uh, what is this? 1929 GW Pabst, not of Pabst Blue Ribbon. Um, one of my favorite cheap beers. Uh, but yeah, Brian, for you, when did you first come across this movie, and what were your like initial thoughts first viewing?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. I may have mentioned on previous Canon uh, podcasts, I did this thing called the Movie Years Project, where I would um, use a random number generator to generate a year between 1900 and 2024 or something. I think it was back a couple of years ago. Um, and I'd watch at least 5 movies from that year and then move on to the next year. I got through every single year doing that. Um, it turned into like a social media thing where I would post about what year I was doing next. People would give me recommendations, and it turned into this big like community project to fill in all of my film history gaps.
Um,
Um,
sorry to cut you off, but that's I know you've spoken about this project before, but I didn't
yeah,
realize that you got through every single year. How
I
long
got
did
through
this take
every
you?
single year.
And
Uh, yeah, 2 years, I think. I think I was doing
okay,
this for 2 years.
so you're watching like 5 movies over what, like 2 days or something, 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, usually, yeah, I'd get through a year in a week or less, I'd say, depending
We're
on the year.
we're gonna have a separate conversation about how many movies you watch because I can't keep up with you. But
It
sorry,
was
go back
really
to
ridiculous at that point. I have slowed down. I had really bad insomnia at the time. And so I was watching like one, maybe two movies in the middle of the night most nights.
okay.
It was pretty nuts.
That's how I watch more movies. Just
Yeah, debilitating insomnia.
okay. Keep that in mind for later. Sorry, but you were saying.
Yeah, so got to 1929, and this was one of the big movies that was recommended. Um, Interesting because you do have sound, sound pictures sort of hit Hollywood in 1927, but from that year through maybe 1931 or 32, you start getting to some like real sound classics, but the best loved movies are still the silent films. So I haven't figured out really how to do sound as excellent as they eventually will.
Mhm. The point about sound not being fully perfected at this point is kind of
Mhm.
interesting because there are moments in this movie where some sort of synchronized sound would have been a little bit interesting to see how it could have been
Mhm.
used. I'm thinking of the gunshot scene in particular,
Oh,
where
yeah. Mhm.
there's no real indication that the gun has gone off. There's not even like a musical cue. It's just sort of the character just like falls over, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
I guess something happened with the gun there. Um, so okay, what? So besides sort of this being like a big movie of the year in 1929, was there anything that stood out to you in particular when you first watched it? Like, obviously, when we were talking about potential movies for you to come on for the season, you threw this one out there. So I assume that means you liked it the first go around.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
what sort of like stood out to you as making this something that we should consider to be essential?
Yeah, so it's really, Louise March is really fantastic in this movie and very just scene stealing, captivating, and it's a gem of a performance and something that grabs you and something that you remember. And so yeah, I think her performance here is among the best silent film performances and just really captivating. And so that's, the first thing that stands out to me and probably to most people about this movie is just how good she is in this role.
Yeah, I think her was Louise Brooks, her performance as Lulu is, it's pretty easy to see that as the main draw um of the movie. She's extremely captivating, and every time, well, which is most of the movie, but every time she's on screen, you are really drawn to her. It does sort of seem like one of the first kind of examples of a movie star carrying a movie. I can't really think of too many other examples of things before this. There was probably some Chaplin stuff, but he's more overall auteur than just movie star. So when we're thinking about someone who is just a performer and graces the screen, this is really one of the first
Yeah.
examples of that, which is kind of interesting to think about.
Well, I got two, but then I'll talk about why Louise Brooks is special. So you have Clara Bow was a pretty famous silent film performer. She was in Wings, which was the very first Best Picture winner at the Oscars, and she's great in that. And she was also in It, not the Stephen King It, which had not yet been written, but she's like the It girl sort of thing.
Hmm.
And she's very good in those films. And then the other one that I'd think of is The Passion of Joan of Arc,
Hmm.
um, with, oh gosh, I should know her name, Maria Falconetti.
Yes.
Um, so she is very captivating. But I think the special thing about Louise Brooks is that she captures sort of both ends of the spectrum where Clara Bow is just like a movie star screen presence, like really fun. And you just like want to be around her, and she's so captivating. And then Maria Falconetti is the like really dramatic and makes you feel deeply. And
Hmm.
Louise Brooks is switching back and forth between those two modes in this movie and is doing both at a really high
Yeah.
level. And so that's sort of an interesting, like, you've got a couple of different types of performance that you can give in silent films. And she's really capturing a range here in the performance that is really captivating.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to find some modern comparisons for the three to kind of place it for some of our audience members who maybe aren't as familiar or as versed in in silent film to sort of like place where these three sort of sit. So, um, yeah, Falconetti, I guess the easiest comparison for her would sort of be like a Daniel Day-Lewis, where you're,
Yeah.
you're showing up to see someone who is giving a phenomenal acting performance, unlike anything you've ever seen. Um, Sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the first woman who you mentioned, because I haven't seen either of those
Clara
films.
Bow.
Clara
Yeah.
Bow. I guess that would be more of like our Julia Roberts, George Clooney kind of movie star,
Yeah. Yeah.
where they're not terribly gifted performers, but they do have a presence about them that is very wonderful, very delightful, and makes you want to spend time with whatever characters they're in whichever movies they're in. And then what Louise Brooks is able to do here is, I want to say, like Denzel Jack kind of vibe,
Mhm.
where you're getting some of the like real life persona, also with some great acting abilities, and like you said, able to sort of bounce back and forth between being an amazing, like a really deep performance, and also just like a fun hang of someone who
Yeah.
you want to spend time with and see grace your screen. Do those feel like
Yeah.
fair comparisons?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Yeah, the polarity between like screen presence or movie star and then, really tremendous acting on the other hand and being able to like convey emotion uh and being able to do both is what we see in, our like very tier movie stars like Denzel or Leo, where they have both that screen presence and they're well respected for their craft.
Yeah. Um, so I guess sort of on Brooks and this Lulu character who's at the center of the story. Well, I guess first, I guess since this is a bit of an older film, and again one that I'm sure some folks listening are maybe not super familiar with, do you want to give us like a quick plot synopsis, quick run through of what exactly is going on here, what this movie is kind of about before we jump into everything else that's going on around it?
Yeah, sure. So, uh basically you've got Lulu is sort of this vivacious young woman who is the mistress of sort of this older, more respectable gentleman. Um, and um, so Lulu is sort of seeing Dr. Schoen, who is an older, more respectable guy, but he's seeing her in secret and wants to marry someone else. She's sort of a showgirl and involved with less reputable people as sort of friends. Dr. Schoen is quite jealous. They eventually do get married, but then he becomes so jealous about her that he ends up sort of fighting her over a gun and is killed in the ensuing struggle. She is put on trial and is sentenced, but then gets away in a scuffle when I think a fire alarm is pulled.
Hmm.
um
Classic
then
move.
she travels with friends and acquaintances sort of on the run as a fugitive. They end up on this like gambling ship, and she gets like sold into slavery at one point eventually, or sold into sex work.
Hmm.
uh Unclear. It's an Egyptian buys her either for sex work or for slavery, to be seen.
Yeah.
uh and then
TBD. Could be anything.
ends up getting murdered by Jack the Ripper in the end. So uh yeah, so it's really the story about her and whether she is sort of, I think the key tension of the movie and something that you can struggle with and wonder about the intention of it is does the movie think that she is responsible for sort of the chaos and stuff, or is she truly a victim of all of this stuff that's befalling her? The key thematic, like, through point to me happens in the courtroom scene when I think the prosecutor is talking about the title of the movie of she
Mhm.
is Pandora and she's opened Pandora's box and let out all of these evils onto the world. And so it's like, does the film actually think that she's responsible for all of this chaos and causing her own downfall, or is it making a more feminist point about like the way we treat women who
Mhm.
do have this sort of life about them and maybe are behaving in a different way than would be expected of them, and how does the world push down somebody like that? So that's the key tension of the movie to me,
Yeah.
at least.
Do you, I mean, do you think the movie really has any clear-cut thoughts one way
Mm,
or the other about where it falls in terms of that tension?
yeah,
I was kind of struggling to to understand where I think the movie itself kind of falls as opposed to just presenting that
yeah.
issue or that question. Do you think that it leans one way or the other?
I think because it is a silent film, there's this inherent ambiguity where the film can read as whatever the viewer brings to it in some ways. And I think that's a strength of the film,
Mhm.
of that, if I had to guess, probably GW Pabst and whoever wrote the script was trying to go for more like, this girl is causing her own downfall because she's amoral. But
Mhm.
then, you don't have a whole lot of tools to establish that. And I think GW Paus was really taken with Louise Brooks, and her performance, especially, I think, makes this such that you can read it more as she is, you can give this a lot more of a feminist reading of she's a victim. Everyone around her is telling her that this is her fault, but that's not really the case from what we see. And we don't see really any actions out of her that are amoral. It's just like she's hanging out with unreputable people, essentially. And it's all of these, like, her husband getting jealous and all of this stuff,
Mhm.
and the people around her like trying to extort her and sell her into sex work, etc., that and murder her in the end.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
there's in a way, the feminist reading of the movie or the more feminist leaning reading of the movie is kind of funny because then it kind of takes her agency away, where she's not actually the driving force in these unfortunate events happening. They're just sort of happening around her, which is obviously a kind of story that we see in movies throughout the decades to follow,
Mhm.
usually more so with male characters and usually played more for laughs. Like, do you think that this movie is a comedy? Do you think it's humorous in how it's presented? That was another thing that I was kind of struggling with. Like, how am I supposed to be reading the tone of what's happening in this story? Because when you say it out loud, when you like recap
Mhm.
the plot the
Yeah.
way that you did, and it's like it ends and she gets murdered by Jack the Ripper, like if you haven't seen the movie, like okay, this sounds kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a very fun movie, but I wouldn't call it a comedy necessarily. It definitely has a lot of life to it and joy. Um, but I think it, yeah, is something that wants to have like these big set pieces and have a lot of fun showing a lot of action that's happening. In terms of like taking away her agency, I think what this does well that I respond to is she, the reason that like she ends up um all of this chaos ends up happening
Mhm.
is because she isn't conforming to like the normal idea of what a woman how a woman should behave at the time, but not in a way that's like really amoral or hurting people. It's just not what is expected, and she's, going around and having a lot of fun, god forbid, and
Yeah.
hanging out with people who are of a lower social class, god forbid, and all of
Yeah,
this
God
stuff.
forbid a
So
lady has a little
I
bit of fun.
I think it's not necessarily like there is victimhood in it, but it's also she does have some agency in what
Mhm.
she's doing and being like different, uh and just trying to like live her life the way that she
Yeah.
wants to live, you know?
That's yeah, I guess agency was the wrong word. Probably she's not necessarily the main driving force of a lot of the action, which
That's
isn't
true. Yep.
necessarily doesn't necessarily mean that she lacks agency. Um, okay, so I think we've covered some of the bigger themes, and I think we'll come back to some other ones, but it's time for my favorite part of the conversation where we talk a little bit
Mm.
of context.
Yeah.
Let's throw some context into this mother trucker. Um, because this Lulu character as someone who is living a life that is maybe a little bit more fun than what the rest of us are used to, or what is maybe more generally acceptable in society. Um, but this is a movie that, like we said, was made in Germany in 1929. So we're in the middle of um, what is it, the Weimar Republic? I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, so like we're at the height of the German Republic, in between the world wars. We are not yet at like the rise of Nazism fully within the country. But at this time, there were a lot. Like Berlin was one of the most, we'll say, like socially progressive cities in Europe at the time. Like there were a lot of um, underworld societies and like underground societies of like queer people and burlesque shows and all these kinds of folks who again are living lives that maybe wouldn't be uh, as accepted more generally by the rest of the public. So I think that context does kind of inform a lot of what Paps is doing and what Brooks is bringing to the character. I think that she spent a lot of time at those like at clubs and around Berlin, hanging out with those communities and whatnot that really informed her character. But Brian, do you have any other insight into sort of like the background and the context of the specific kind of Germany that this movie was being made in when it was being made?
I guess just some things to add on the German film around this time. People may have heard of German expressionism. This wouldn't be considered a German expressionist film. Um, Expressionism would be like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu, some of those Murnau films. And very like heavily art designed, really interesting and striking, not necessarily going for realism.
Mhm,
This is more, typical silent film that isn't necessarily in that style. The one thing I noticed that it does take from some of those films is German filmmakers did not really care for many intertitles. They cared to do a lot more visually. And the intertitles are pretty sparse here. You'll end up with, I mean, really, the intertitles are just dialogue. There, you don't get a lot
mhm,
of like, and now this happened, or later that day on the ship or whatever. You're just thrown into it visually and meant to understand what's going on. And you don't even get all of the dialogue in intertitles. It'll skip over some stuff and just show you like somebody saying something, but
mhm,
not at an intertitle to say what they said all of the time. So it is very like visual first and wants to show you a lot of stuff of what's going on. I think a lot of the film, like, this is a 2 hour and 20-minute film, and the plot, there's plot, but it doesn't need to be that long to get through the plot. It wants to show you these big set pieces of things going on, of the circus, the gambling ship, the wedding, the
Mhm.
courtroom, and all of the spectacle that involves. And I
Yeah.
really love the spectacle that's involved in this film and those real big set pieces, and just like inhabiting that world for a little bit, because I think it's really stunning and doesn't need to like really, because reading text is not, the reason you go to a movie. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I think that the German silent film people understood that, of like, intertitles are fine so that you are situated and understand what's going on, but the more that you can get away from that and just show things visually rather than telling them via text, the better off you're going to be.
God forbid this visual medium is used to tell stories in a visual manner and we take
Exactly.
advantage of the visual spectacle of what it is that we're able to accomplish. What an insane thought.
What an
Um
insane thought. And
yeah,
I
I
do think it's pretty legible. There are some times where it's like, man, a well-placed intertitle might really have clarified, like you said about Dr. Schoen's death being
mhm,
like, did he, what happened there? Did he get shot? There was no sound effect. And so it's sort of hard to tell in the moment, but then you pick up from the context of what happens afterwards of, oh, okay, I think I understand what
yeah.
happened there.
At
So you
first
do end up with some moments like that where it's like a little more clarity might have been nice, but I think you can live with that. Uh,
what 1000%. I think, you know, for me, like while I was watching this as a viewer in 2026, I was realizing that I have a lot more like Netflix brain than I care to admit as a viewer. And I think watching a movie like this does sort of help to recalibrate my brain
mm,
and my viewing and how it is that I choose to engage with movies and not engage with other distractions while watching these movies.
mhm,
Because, even even with, intertitles and stuff, like you still have to be like pretty locked in to understand what's going on. Um, but yeah, I think like having the movie focus on a lot of these like visual elements, which again the Germans understood um maybe better than anyone else who was making movies at this point, uh between expressionist stuff and some of the other things that were coming out of Germany at the time. They really understood that taking advantage of the visuals of the medium was the the most important thing. There are some shots in this though where you're like, wow, that looks like it was pulled directly out of a film noir, or like film noirs were looking at this as well as uh, some of the German expressionist films for inspo. So like it's still there a little bit.
oh yeah, it's all in a lineage for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Um, I guess with the film noir thing, and we were talking about how again, like without German cinema in the 1920s, like we wouldn't have without expressionism, we wouldn't have film noir. Without film noir, we wouldn't have like French New Wave. Without French New Wave, we probably wouldn't have like a lot of our favorite like American indie movements in the
Mhm.
90s and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so all of that kind of tracing back to this, but thinking through one of the hallmarks of film noir, the femme fatale. This movie's kind of like a flip or like reverse on that, where instead of her being a secondary character, like the femme fatale is kind of the main character, or could we say that the main character is in a way a femme fatale if we're reading it in that she is the reason for all of this death and chaos that's happening around her?
Yeah, I think she's not as, like, cool and aloof as you'd expect a femme fatale to be, like, she's not cagey in the way that a femme fatale would be, but you do have that, like, she is sort of the instigator that's often the, noir double indemnity sort of thing that's going on, where it's like this really captivating woman is the downfall of this whole thing. Um, so I think there are some commonalities, but it's not a one to one, I'd say.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely not a one to one. And again, I don't know that like when people were making what would come to be known as film noir that they were thinking about this movie specifically because this movie did kind of bomb when it was first released and was
Mhm.
not received well at all, like across the board. Do you have anything about how people initially responded to this and then sort of how it came back into play as a sort of, lost favorite among cinephiles?
It does make me just wonder, like, what from today is going to be truly rediscovered, because I think you have people a lot of times people will claim in the moment, "Oh, this is an instant cult classic," or, "Oh, this is gonna be revered," but, like, something that truly, like, gets dismissed and that nobody really likes or thought about for like decades. What are those things going to be that nobody is talking about right
Yeah,
now, but that in 30 years we're like, oh, this was actually like just something that we weren't ready for yet or didn't respect at the time.
probably
And
Madam Web.
yeah, Madam Web, you think is going to be the one?
Yeah.
Could be, could be.
Uh, so I had that thought, and I also had the thought of how many other movies from this era are just completely lost to time. That
So many. Yeah.
because even with the versions that we have of this, which were saved and restored from, I think there were three different prints in circulation, and you can tell like with what they had,
Yeah.
obviously it's still super legible, but you can still tell it's kind of rough. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Are you as much of a sucker for the description, the, like, restoration notes at the beginning of a film like this as I am?
yeah,
Like, I throw some on and there's these big block of text, so I'm like, "Oh, it's the restoration notes. I must read every detail about how they made this film." They're like candy to me.
yeah. What isn't the story with this one? Um, some American critic from New York saw somehow was able to see a screening of this in Paris and then got his hands on that print, brought it back to Rochester, New York, which is weird that this movie has a some connection to the city of Rochester, New York. But shout out upstate New York.
Mhm.
And he then found a few other prints and was able to match and restore it that way. Um, and then I think there was another restoration that happened in the late aughts, early 2010s that was spearheaded by Hugh Hefner,
I did see him in the credits, yeah.
which like kind of makes sense that this would be a movie that would sort of be in line with his sensibilities, but also apparently he was kind of a big cinephile and just like loved doing work to restore old movies, which is kind of
Wild.
wild.
Oh.
Um, okay, we'll circle back to the Hugh Hefner of it all because there are some interesting things there. But just yeah, to quickly run through the rest of these sort of like this movie when it was first released um in Germany, folks didn't like it. They didn't think that it was a good translation of the stage plays that it was based off of. They did not like that the Lulu character was played by this American Louise Brooks running around playing a character who they thought to be distinctly German. Um, I gotta say, Brian, that one was kind of lost on me. I don't know how a silent film character can be distinctly German or not. Maybe it's just my, you know, American privilege. shining through, and I was like, yeah, this character can be German, even though she's an actress from the States. Um, in France and England, there were recuts of this movie. The French did not enjoy the idea of a father and son being romantically involved with the same woman, which I guess is kind of understandable. The Brits thought that the Jack the Ripper inclusion was like a way of tainting their reputation, so they recut it to like not include that character. And
uh,
then in the States, I guess folks just weren't about it. They, you know, I think one of the readings, and this will kind of bring us back to the Hugh Hefner of it all, is that this character may or may not be a prostitute.
mhm,
And folks who read it that way, especially at the time, were not down with that. Not down with a woman who is this sexually open, with a woman who, a movie about a woman who might be a lady of the night. There are LGBTQ plus undertones and overtones at points in this
mhm.
movie. Um, so just like across the board, no one was riding with this until that American film critic in the 50s found it, decided to restore it. Uh, Roger Ebert then rewatched it or did a screening of it in like the 80s or 90s, included it on his list of great movies that kind of um, invited and inspired like another rediscovery of the movie. And then in the 2010s, Hugh Hefner was like, hell yeah, let's restore the son of a gun. And the San Francisco Silent Film Festival played it. And since then, it's kind of been something that folks love. I think, although I think Criterion released a Blu-ray of this in '06, so before that, but it's had several different lifespans of being reclaimed by various uh, cinephile groups. Uh, including Hugh. So what do you think about the sort of like way that this character's sexuality and like sexual expression is and sexual freedom kind of plays out in the movie? And is that part of what drew you to it? And as I ask that question out loud, it doesn't sound right. But talk to me about all that.
I do think, yeah, there's something that's really compelling about her in terms of the like sex work. It's clear by the time that like she is talking with Jack the Ripper and he's saying like I have no money and he's like come anyway, I like you. Um that she's doing sex work at that point. So then I guess it's just like how early is that happening, etc. And I think we have a lot more sympathetic view of that now than they would then. And so I think you'd say it's a little ahead of its time on the sexual politics of the day. um and yeah, it's just like, sometimes you need a really compelling and sexy presence in your movie, and that's good. Are we pretty sex positive here on the canon of like, yeah, we like people being sexy in movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah. You know?
I think so. I think we like people being sexy in movies. Um, I think, yeah, I think at the canon we have a pretty sex positive view of things like sex work and just people being open about, expressing their sexuality in films. What's wrong with the movie being a little horny?
Yeah.
Not to say that this movie's horny, but it's just it's
It's a little
open
bit
and
horny. I think everybody on set was a little horny for Louise Brooks, and that's what made the movie sort
yeah,
of what it was, except for the guy who plays Dr. Shun, who apparently did not like her at all.
yeah. Apparently he like threw a tantrum after every take.
But then like GW Paus was so taken with her that he like tried to make it okay and was like trying to smooth things out and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody was sort of under her spell. And then the audience, yeah, we're all under her spell too. So I think it works.
yeah. Except for the contemporary audiences of the day, they were not having it.
I don't know what was wrong with them. Yeah.
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 Do you think there were like there must have been like a group of like 5 people out there, like a couple friends who went to see this movie, and they all walked down. They were like, "That was great. That was so
Yeah.
cool. Aren't you so happy that we all saw this? Like, let's go get some." I don't. What do Germans do after? What do they eat?
They
Like,
get some bratwurst.
yeah.
Go get some bratwurst.
You want to go get some bratwurst and discuss how awesome that movie was? And
Yeah.
then everyone else at the bratwurst spot was like, "That movie sucked." Um, I think, Brian, I think that's all really that I had about Pandora's Box. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention about this movie? What makes it what makes it great? What makes it essential? Why it's something that we should be watching as film fans?
Hmm. I think we've hit on most everything. I do enjoy that this film takes its time because I can feel that when some movies are adapted as this was, based on actually a couple of plays, they can sort of rush through the plot because you can't get through plot as quickly in a silent film as you can when you have dialogue to like keep things moving pretty quickly. It just takes more time to get through that plot, and so if you really rush it or make things unclear, then it can be a problem. But I feel like this takes its time, and especially in, as I mentioned earlier, those set piece sequences where you're just like at the circus seeing what's going on for 10 minutes there and seeing all of the crowds and stuff. I really enjoy those sequences where it really slows down and just shows you like a place for a while, because they're really pretty stunningly captured, I think.
This is, sort of in line with an early version of something that you love in slow cinema.
Yeah, and silent film is sort of, it is slower by the nature of it in a lot of ways, unless you've got like the Eisenstein films on the other end that are using like the montage and the quick cuts and trying to cut as quickly between things as possible to establish a whole. So I guess you do have instances of both, but most of silent film ends up being relatively slower, and you can just sort of sit in something, and I enjoy when films do that. So
Yeah, you can fully experience what it is that's going on. You can fully embrace and understand and get the feel, vibe,
mhm,
atmosphere of a certain place or scene or setting and all that stuff, which it goes a long way. Um,
mhm,
I think I mention this every time we talk about a silent movie on the Canon, so I think it's within my contract that I have to mention this. But I have the take that every year we should have 5 to 10 studio released silent films, and
mhm.
every major filmmaker of our modern times should make a silent film. Like, would you not love to see PTA make his own silent film and just see
Mhm.
how that would play out?
I would love it. Um, I don't know if you've seen recent example, but Be Gone's Resurrection. I've been raving about this for a little
Yeah.
while, but it starts with about like maybe a 30-minute sequence that's set as like a silent film with intertitles and all, and stunningly shot, maybe the best visually of the entire movie. So loved that. I think it's on Criterion now, so
Yeah.
available to be seen.
I need to watch that. I know you've been raving about it. But that's only 30 minutes. Give us a
That
full.
Yeah, give us the full movie. He goes through like different eras of film, which is really
Mhm.
interesting. It's very like there's several different sequences, all an homage to something or other. So
Hell
it's really
yeah.
good. That film does not need any changes, but I do get what you're saying of we need some true silent films. For me,
The
I
only example
sort
we have
of
is The Artist.
Yeah, the artist. Gosh, uh, I haven't seen that, but one of my friends really wants me to watch it, and I've resisted. Um, so for me, I sort of wish if I could like change film history a little bit. I sort
Mhm.
of wish we had gotten like 10 more years of silent films before we fully flipped into the sound era. Cause a lot of the like real classics of silent film are in that like 1927 to 1930 range where it's like, man, they were really figuring this thing out.
Mhm.
And then sound gets introduced and you got everybody like tethered to a plant pot that has the microphone, and you're not able to do any of the like amazing camera movement stuff that the neat directors were just figuring out how to do really well. And it's like,
Mhm.
man, just give us like 10 more years of this and we could have had some like, you know, three times the number of classic silent films that we do now.
Yeah,
It feels
we'd
like
have absolute
some,
heaters.
yeah.
I do think if, going back to if we were to make modern silent movies, I think it would keep both filmmakers and audience members honest about what it is that movies are and how it is that we interact with them. Um, Specifically on the audience member part where, I was talking about Netflix brain, and earlier this year there was you know, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were had that interview where they were talking about how uh Netflix writers are told to restate the plot and the
Yep.
stakes over and over again, because audience members are, we're on our phones, we're on our second screens, however it may
Hmm.
be. um and I just think if we had to watch a few silent movies every year, I think that we would be better about how it is that we watch movies and what it is that
Yeah.
we expect from movies. um and it would only make things better for all of us. So I've said it 1,000 times, and for all of the other silent movies that we end up talking about in the canon, I will continue to mention this take because, like I said, it's in my contract, and I
Yeah.
have an obligation. I have to mention it. So
I'm down. Yeah, let's get some silent movies. What directors would you most like to see make a silent movie that are working today?
they're working today. Um, I think PTA would be interesting because he's such a good writer, and it would be interesting to see. I think he has the chops, but it would be interesting to see him having that tool taken away from him.
Yeah, yeah.
Who would you pick?
I think he could do it. I think Tarantino wouldn't go so well because he is much more of a dialogue, yeah, driven. If that's the biggest signature, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. Who would I pick? Maybe Fincher. A Fincher silent film would be pretty sick.
Ooh. You know who would low key crush it is Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah, yeah, he
He
would.
would probably be an amazing silent film director. Um yeah, that's what we need.
Ari Aster, maybe. Maybe his films would be less annoying to me if they didn't have dialogue. I like Ari Aster. I really like him. You know, the interviews I've seen from him, I'm like, I like you, dude. I get what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
It's just, yeah, the last two didn't really work for me, but I really like Midsommar. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm still on the I'll still watch what he puts out. Yeah.
Yeah.
He hasn't he
You're
hasn't
hoping
killed
it'll
it
it'll
for
get
me.
back to what you see as his sort of prime form.
Yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be horror. I think just getting away from like the feel bad sort of stuff. I don't think that's his forte. I do like that when some directors do it, but
Mhm.
maybe it's this modern directors that don't respond to it as well. because I'm living in the now. So that might be it. But
I think
anyway.
he had to get some stuff off his chest. So
Yeah, that's sort of
maybe
what it felt like.
yeah, maybe he's done that and now he's ready to to get back to not just doing that. Um Amazing. Well, Brian, this has been a ton of fun. Before we get out of here, we got to do some recos for Pandora's box. There may or may not be some Ari Aster, may or may not be some Steven
Ooh.
Soderbergh, may or may not be some PTA. We shall see. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. We can jump in and give our 3 recommendations for Pandora's box. So, whenever you're ready, take it away and give us your first recommendation.
All right. Um, I will go German silent film for the first one. Because the one thing I mentioned earlier that stood out to me was a real sparse use of intertitles.
Mhm.
And there is an excellent Murnau film called The Last Laugh that I'm going to recommend. That I believe it's been a while since I've watched it or looked it up, but I believe it is famous for having just one intertitle in the entire movie.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, so really, yeah, trying to avoid those inner titles and letting the visuals carry it. And it is a little bit more, it's less stylized and more dramatic, a little bit more like this. So I think people who dig Pandora's Box would also dig The Last Laugh. Um,
Nice.
so yeah,
Yeah.
great film.
Let's watch more German silent film. I think that's the big takeaway from today. But I'm not gonna recommend a German silent film, at least not for my first go around. But what I am gonna recommend is um, a book in a series that I've been thinking about a bit more this year. Why? I'm not exactly sure. Actually, no, that's not true. I know exactly why, but whatever. Um, this movie, we're hopping around, we're going to different locations, we're country hopping. There, she almost goes to Egypt, she goes to London. We start in Germany, obviously. I think there's a stop in France along the way. I want to say, but we're globe trotting. There's a big important gambling game that happens in the middle, and obviously people are being, pretty sexually open. People are hooking up. We're being sex positive here, and that reminded me of a story about a fellow by the name of James Bond. I'm gonna recommend Casino Royale because he's also doing some globe
Ah,
trotting. He's also pretty sexually open, and there's a big gambling match that happens
yeah.
within that movie or within that book.
Do they
So
gamble on a ship in that movie? I feel like they might.
I don't know if they do. It's been a while since I've seen the movie.
There's gambling and there's definitely also like being on a boat at some point.
Yeah. But I'm gonna recommend the book version instead of the movie version.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But I've been unfortunately thinking about the James Bond series and dipping my toes into the James Bond series a bit more this year. Um, and that's just because all the movies were added to Netflix earlier this year. So
Oh.
I started watching them and I had not seen many of them.
Hmm.
And now you know, I think I was right to never be a James Bond guy.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Do you respond more when they go for real campy or do you like the more like serious?
I think I respond to the older, campier stuff. I
Yeah.
think that fits the tone of what the character should be. I don't think the modern I don't even think the modern campy works. Like the
Hmm.
Pierce Brosnan ones also
Don't
don't
really
work
work.
for me.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen any James Bond movies, but I enjoy them enough. Might be fun to go back and watch something. Uh, okay, well, my next pick um, is going to be Inglorious Bastards. Uh, I wrote it up, uh, review for our Tarantino month back in March at Screen Age. And so it was fresh on my mind, and one of the things is that Michael Fassbender's character mentions several times that he's a film critic and very familiar with the films of GW Pabst, and even uses that to get out of, like, trying to lie to a German and say that he is German, and he says he was in a GW Pabst film, not this film, but
Yeah,
a different one that was like in the mountains of Pitzpaloo and all
yeah,
of this stuff. So when I was rewatching, I was like, GW Paps, I know who that is now. When I
yeah,
watched Inglorious Bastards for the first time, I definitely did not
yeah.
clock the reference, but yeah, that's sort of cool.
That's awesome. So Bastards is in the canon, so we can't recommend that. But I do think your write up is your
My
review
write up is fair game.
is fair game. Yeah.
Why isn't my write up in the canon, Raf?
It's not a movie?
Okay, yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Should we create a canon of the best reviews on Street Age Wasteland?
We should do it. We should do it,
The most
definitely.
essential
Best
reviews.
podcast episodes, too.
Yeah. It's weird. Bryan keeps nominating his own reviews and his own guest appearances for the best and most essential ones.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Inglorious Bastards. Yeah, I didn't even think, but yeah, that makes sense that it is in the
Yeah,
canon. It's a great one.
it is a very good one. I'm a big fan. That's awesome. For my second recommendation, I'm gonna go with a restaurant.
Ooh.
So we mentioned that one of the big sort of like um periods of reclamation for this movie was after it was screened at the 2012 San Francisco Silent Film Festival, which I had not heard of, didn't know was a thing, but it sounds pretty rad. But
Mm.
in San Francisco, there is a restaurant that is like a really good restaurant, like really good
Mm.
food, but they also have this like outdoor back patio with a projector and they're always screening old movies there. It's called Foreign Cinema. I'm pretty sure there is also a theater that's like next to the restaurant where they do like full proper screenings, like a proper theater that you can go to, but great restaurant. Bryan, you would love it. If you guys ever make it out to San Francisco anytime soon, highly recommend that you go. Great food, and you get to watch like a cool old movie that's that's just like being played throughout the night while you're eating.
That sounds amazing. Yep.
We need more restaurants like that.
We do. So, at Chroma, we've been doing most of our screenings we do at this like beautiful church that has like this just gorgeous space for us, and we do movies that play well in there, but we've started doing some screenings at a local bar too, and they let us use like one of their back rooms, but people can take in their like food numbers and they like come and serve them while we're watching. So we joke that it's our little like Cinnabar
Yeah.
that we got going on there. So
Hell yeah.
screening A Woman Under the Influence there next week. So excited about that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Um Maybe that should be my recommendation, but I think for my next recommendation is Wanda is not in the canon, I wouldn't guess.
I don't believe so.
Okay. I'm going to recommend Wanda as another film focused on a woman. This one is more explicitly feminist. It's made by a woman, and so definitely has sort of a cleaner perspective and less ambiguous, like, is it her fault or not? But this film also is a little more open about Wanda's shortcomings in that, like, early in the film, there is another courtroom scene, which is another commonality, but she goes, to the court and basically says, yeah, let my husband, take my kids. If he wants them, then that's fine. And so going against like the stereotypes of what we'd say a good woman should do, of like, wanting, she's okay with like letting somebody else take her kids and sort of thing. But it really like keeps, so yeah, anyway, I think there's a lot of commonalities there, but it shows sort of the progression of how we'd view women. Wanda is explicitly not as charismatic
Mhm.
as Louise Brooks is, and is very like subdued and quiet, and I think taking her voice away is a little of a point of the movie, versus Louise Brooks being really prominent and sort of the focal point, um and having sort of more of a presence. Wanda's sort of lack of presence is an interesting inversion there. um, but I think they'd pair in an interesting way together. And I love Wanda, so anytime I can plug it,
Hell
I
yeah.
will.
I gotta watch that. Got to add that one to the watch list. Um, Sweet. I have not recommended a movie yet. So I'm saving my movie for last because it is a very unbelievably dumb connection that I'm making between these two movies. But when Doctor, is it Sean? Dr. Scon? How do we pronounce
Dr.
his name?
Sheen,
Dr.
Sheen,
Sheen.
yeah,
Yeah,
Dr. Scone.
Dr. Scony. German was never my language, you know? I
No,
Yeah.
it. I took a little bit in high school, and it's sort of fun because you get all of these weird like, it's very like mouthy and consonant forward. So
Mhm.
it's sort of you're making a lot of fun sounds.
I almost took a semester of German in college and decided against it. I was like, I'm never gonna use this.
Yeah,
So
like Shigolsh. there,
yeah,
there are two how the consonant to vowel ratio in
yeah,
Shigolsh
is
is two vowels and at least seven uh consonants. Is
I've been trying so hard this entire conversation to not mention either of those characters because I've been terrified of
of
pronouncing
the
them.
name.
Yeah, but Dr. Scone,
Dr. Scone.
Dr. Scone, when he first showed up, I just couldn't get out of my mind. Oh my god, that looks like Kevin O'Leary and Marty Supreme. So I'm recommending Marty Supreme.
You're 100% right. That's such a good call. The
I just
glasses, yeah, the glasses are pretty identical. Yeah.
Every time he came on screen, I just pictured Kevin O'Leary in that role. So I didn't like that character.
Yeah. I mean, similar vibes, honestly.
Yeah. Just kind of a rich D bag. But yeah, Marty Supreme is my last recommendation. Brian, we did it. Your grand return to the canon. Um, Before we get out of here, where can folks check you out? You've got the Chroma series in Knoxville for those who are around,
Mhm.
and obviously your writings on Screen Age Wasteland. But where else can folks find you?
I'm on Letterboxd and pretty much nothing else. I'm not real frequent social media or other than Letterbox, but I do write about movies over there and log all of the stuff I've seen. So that's letterbox.com/Bryan Loomis. So you can find me there and just hanging out with the Saw community and the screenagers. Love them to death. Yep.
Sweet. Love that. Yeah, folks should definitely go follow you over on Letterboxd. Big fan of what it is that you're doing over there. Also, big fan of all of your reviews and write ups and whatnot on Screen Age Wasteland, where folks, screenagers, continue to hang out with us there. We've got a ton of great reviews and lists and all sorts of other fun stuff going on the website proper. You can check us out on the Screen Age Wasteland YouTube page, where you can find the canon, You can find Wasteland After Dark. You can find Jacob Holmes's Weekend Wrap. You can find Jacob Holmes's Pole Position. There might be some other stuff. You can check us out on the Saw Exclusives channel, where there's some great interviews. You can check out Saw Reviews and Kung Fu Cinema. Yeah, Kung Fu or Kung Fu Cinema. But Doll's review YouTube page, which is really great. He's looking at old action movies and reviewing those. So a lot of great stuff. You can also find the Canon. I think I said that on the YouTube page, but you can also find us on Apple or Spotify or whatever wherever it is that you're listening to us now. We will be back next week.
Mm.
Another essential movie, another great movie, another great guest or guests. We shall see. But either way, we will see all of you folks there. And as always, in the meantime, we will catch all of you lovely folks in the wasteland.